All right, click the links to join the channel, subscribe, Star Odyssey, Bit Chute, or the Telegram. How do you lose $750 million? Well, I think you're going to find out. And when this comes out, 2 years from now, I won't be on YouTube. By then, I'll be on Odyssey and Bit Chute. But you'll see. You'll see that, yeah, oh my gosh, the biggest film loss in Hollywood history. They lost $500 million. Amazon lost $500 million on Rings of Power. That's what's going to come out a year from now, 2 years from now, when and the damage control, I think the first episode comes a month from now, and oh god, it's gonna suck, just horrible, right? When it comes out, the damage control the media is going to do for this is going to be effusive, saccharine, over the top damage control, left wing, trying to say, oh, it's really not that bad. It's just once you look past the CGI, the plot, the pacing, the sets, the direction, and the actors, it's just like Tolkien envisioned it, except with AFROHOBBITS. So it's going for 5 seasons. You might get the first boost for the first 2 or 3, and then after that, it's going to fall off a cliff. Because you've seen the previews, you know how horrible it looks. Yeah, it's going to lose $500 million. I don't think that's a crazy prediction. So how does The Rings of Power? How do you ghost Peter Jackson? Same thing happened with Rings of Power that happened with Disney 2015 Star Wars. It became a left versus right, a young versus older. I don't know. Star Wars is like, at 2015 was a 40 and over type of crowd would be the group that was very, very familiar with it. A transformative versus a curative type of audience. And a lot of it was just, when you're younger, you're more on the left. And when you're older, you're more conservative. And it felt like when that came out in 2015, the younger kids were trying to defend the Star Wars stuff. And the older people were like, yeah, this doesn't look like Star Wars. And, ultimately they say, well, the people put their money where their mouth is. And for Star Wars to go, oh, what do you mean? It made $1 billion. The first one, I don't know, made $600 million, and then it dropped down from there. But overall, it's like, yeah, it made a couple $1 billion through international and all these other kind of things. And then, it gets people in the park, but it didn't make what it should have made because the excitement wasn't there. It didn't. No, you're not going to capture the original Star Wars. That was lightning in the bottle. The best you could hope for would be going a different direction with it, and the direction that Disney Star Wars went with it was, I'm not really sure. It was woke. It's like that kind of sums it up. They went in the woke direction, and very few people rewatched it. People saw it because they wanted to complete the trilogy of the trilogy, but they didn't rewatch it. Like, watching it once was enough. It's like, hey, you want to sit back and watch the trilogy? I'll watch the original trilogy, and we can talk about that on a live stream maybe. But the original, like the prequels or the Disney version, I really don't want to watch those. They're bad for different reasons. But I guess I'd have to say that George Lucas prequels were better than the Disney stuff, just because at least it felt like George Lucas, even if it felt like a little too much Return of the Jedi. So the difference is in Rings of Power in Disney and Star Wars is that the previews look good for Star Wars, and people have faith in Disney to finish the last trilogy. This was in 2015. That's like, I don't know, 1,000 years in dog years or SJW years or something. This was before people knew that Disney was going to go this woke with it, and that you didn't have a coherent plan between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. It's like, had these two people ever talked to each other? And like, oh, hey, we're directing these things. Maybe we should get on the same page with it. No, we don't need to do that. Let's just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. Oh, it didn't really make a good trilogy. Nah, we'll get paid anyway. Though I suspect that Rian Johnson's kind of, I don't know what he's doing now, but like, why on God's green earth would you want him to do anything? So people know what is going on with these entertainment companies. We know it's just propaganda now. Like, everyone knows what woke means. You're not going to fool us with a bait and switch anymore. It's 2022. People are very well aware. We've had 7 years of Disney Star Wars, of Ghostbusters, of the X-Men, the latest X-Men, which I don't think anybody saw. So when you reference X-Men, like, people don't know what you're talking about because they didn't see that last movie. There was a latest X-Men. You have to go dig deep to find it. It was that bad that it got forgotten. Or Charlie's Angels with Elizabeth Banks, or Terminator with a bunch of chicks. And there was like a bunch of, and I don't know, Oceans whatever came out, and Suicide Squad Part 2, and then Birds of Prey, and Shang-Chi, and G.I. Joe, and Black Widow. There's about a dozen of these movies that were either bombs, so you look at them like, oh, you want to watch it again? No. It's just, no, I don't know. It's like a hand job from a robot or something. There's just no soul to any of these movies. So nobody has any hope in these Amazon, Disney, HBO stuff that's coming out. We know it's over. The Lord of the Rings trilogy that came out in 2000, in my opinion, that was the last those were the last movies that Hollywood made that were good movies. For me, Hollywood ended with Return of the King. There was nothing that came out after that I wanted to see, and like there's nothing I want to see now with Hollywood at all. Maybe micro budget movies, if somebody's making sub $5 million movies, that I will go see. But there's nothing coming out of the mainstream that I want to see, because I know they're following this narrative. They're following this script that's just pre-approved from these globalist puppet masters. And if you're in the superhero genre from DC, Sony, Disney, do you think any of that's going to be good? Oh, what? There's some hope? No, there's no hope. No, get on the pessimist train. I mean, it's just a whole series of bad movies. And how many bad movies do you have to see to realize, like, oh, it's not even worth watching for free to go online and watch it? Like Captain Marvel, would you go watch that again for free? No, there's no friggin' way. So no, there's no hope in Amazon's Rings of Power after looking at the previews on YouTube, and then the images that come out. People look at those images that came out, the AFROHOBBITS, like, is this a joke? Because this looks like the parody that came out 10 years ago or 20 years ago with Mad TV when they did a parody. I can't distinguish the parody from the reality. Like, why are there AFROHOBBITS and lore? Oh, you're just histophobic. I don't really feel histophobic. I feel like I just want to kind of stick to the original source material if you respect the artistic vision. Oh, well, he's histophobic too. That's really hard to understand, because he's the guy who created all this. This one Englishman. He wrote this story loosely based on World War I and Europe and England and the village he grew up in. Yeah, he's basically a Nazi. Okay, that's good that you wanted to retell this $1 billion story, and it's good that you got rid of everything that made the story good to retell it in your own way. Anyway, even the word woke bothers them, because it's an all-right dog whistle. It instantly tells us not to watch something. It's like the left wing calls stuff that they don't like istophobic and fashionable, except the difference is that we don't make movies, they do. Though that is slowly changing a little bit, so that's kind of exciting to see. And no, I'm not talking about Shapiro making movies. No. That's just as bad as the left wing making movies. It's just bad in a different way. So when the alt-right YouTube Yahtzees, Ryan Cannell and Gary Nerdrotic or Yellow Flash or Odin's Movie Blog or Geeks and Gamers and all those far right YouTubers, those guys, yeah, they're far right because they don't like propaganda. Like, they just want the original movies. Honor the artistic vision. Can you do that? At one time, that would have been a left-wing view, too. Yeah, we're going to respect the artistic vision. We're not going to let big corporate Hollywood whore out. Oh, no. We're going to make it woke. Feels like the left wing got completely subverted by these Bolshevik parasites. Oh, that's exactly what happened. Anyway, the thing is, like, we know if this like that group, that YouTube group, it's it's like a few 100,000 people, but it's got a reach of millions of people. And here's the thing: it has a reach of people who are the target audience. It's why Eric July and Ethan Van Sciver, when they don't have huge platforms. Eric July, now he does. His channel's growing huge. But EVS has got a 150,000, and he's able to sell tons of comics because of the 150,000, there's a few thousand in there who are hardcore comic buying audience. The same with Eric July. It's like that's a crowd. That's the target crowd. Now, with the YouTube Phantom Menace Comicsgate, that vague community, they are talking to this target crowd of people who not only buy the movies, but they buy the t-shirts, or they would have bought the t-shirts, the artwork associated with it, the toys, the collectibles, the fast food tie-in cups to get all that collector stuff. There's no excitement for Disney Star Wars 2015. The toy sales were flat, and the clothing sales and the tie-ins were non-existent. And you go like, oh, well, the movie made, $4 billion. Yeah, the toy sales, believe it or not, they're supposed to equal the movie sales, if not exceed the movie sales like they did with the original Star Wars. And in 2015, Disney, that didn't happen at all. Nobody was buying Rose Tico dolls. Those like everyone looked at that movie and these toys and like, yeah, nobody wants this. Kids are honest. Kids will tell you like what sits on the shelf and what goes to clearance. That tells you what the movie is. That's a better movie review than any movie review. When Rotten Tomatoes gives one of the Disney Star Wars, I think they gave it like 91%. I think the first one they gave it 91%. You're like, you gave that 91%, but you gave the original trilogy 93, 94, and like 97%. Something's not adding up here. Or you give Wonder Woman like 93%, but you gave Empire Strikes Back 94%. That's insane. The relative ratio proportions of Empire would be, if you set it at 100, then Wonder Woman would be like a 60. Like these numbers, you're giving everything over 90%. The numbers are meaningless. Anyway, my point is with that YouTube Fandom Menace Comicsgate crowd is they have a reach for a target audience. It results in it has a financial impact on films, even though like these channels, you know, Gary's got like 10,000 live stream, Flash might have a few thousand. It all adds up and it spreads to other platforms. So yeah, Hollywood is paying attention. Yes, they know who the Fandom Menace is. Absolutely. It's like a few thousand to a few million people, but the reach is a few million people, and it's exactly the type of people who are willing to spend money for this kind of, you know, this kind of stuff. If you respect the customer. They're not fans. They're effing customers. Stop thinking of people as fans. Fans, fanatic, they'll just blindly accept stuff. No, all that ended like 10 or 20 years ago. These are customers. They want a return on their investment. Usually this means fun, simple entertainment, and they're not getting that anymore. They're getting this woke, diverse abortion, and then they're told if they don't like it, if they don't like the thing that they fell in love with, the original source material, and they're not getting the original source material or a reasonable extrapolation of that source material, you know, curative. Oh, you guys are just you're fascists because you don't want something that's not what you fell in love with. Well, if you replace every piece of something, you know, silicon-enriched geothermal alteration of waters going through some carbon, and you replace each carbon atom with silicon, well, it's not a piece of wood anymore. It's a rock. You turned it to silicon. It's a effing rock. Oh, no, it's the same thing. It's the same. Well, try to put it in fire and see if it's the same thing. Feed it to a termite and see what they do with it. It's like, it's not the same thing when you change everything that was cool about it. We wanted the carbon wood. Anyway, the thing is, we don't control Hollywood. We don't, there's no right of center. Like Mel Gibson, is that the one guy I can think of, the one guy we can all name who's like vaguely is some kind of shitlord, right? Winona Ryder. I had some joke about Winona Ryder. I just about peed myself when I heard it. But, you know, it's like Winona Ryder. She's some kind of like thief who goes around gets her kinks from stealing. So I don't know how well I trust her. But he's the one guy who we can all kind of name who's like right of center in Hollywood. And that's it. Everyone else is, you know, on board this Bolshevik propaganda train. So we don't, like, politics is downstream from this Hollywood pop culture. We don't control the culture at all, though that is slowly changing. And it'll be interesting to see if there ever is an alt Hollywood that springs up. And it's like the same thing with Comicsgate. Was mainstream comics got so bad that Diversity in Comics decided to start an alternative industry, and it's, you know, barely 1% of the mainstream industry, if that. But it shows you that when the alternative is so bad, people are willing to put their money somewhere else and get something that doesn't insult your intelligence. It's like, oh, we want this original story carried out. Oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to change everything about it. And if you don't like it, we're gonna attack you on social media. Well, that seems kind of childish. Why don't you just follow the artistic intent of the creator? Oh, we're not going to do that. But why not? Like, and if you really don't like it, why don't you just write something fresh? Oh, we can't write something fresh. We're demons in human. I don't know. It's like one of the rules of these demons in human masks or something is that they can't actually. I think, didn't Tolkien say something like that? Evil, the Shadow Realm can't create. Anyway, in regards to the control of the narrative, it's why you don't see. I mean, how many movies have you seen on the horrors of communism or Bolshevism in Russia, or mass deletions and starvation in Ukraine, or the horrors, you know, China, Khmer Rouge? You might have seen like one, The Killing Fields, or maybe a couple other movies, but you know there's like 1,000 other movies about that other stuff. And the Bolshevik atrocities, or even the Japanese atrocities, very rarely gets told. And you start wondering, like, oh, gee, It's, well, you know where that's going. The thing is, it explains why the narrative is the way it is. We're already so far down this rabbit hole, but people don't know that they're in this rabbit hole, though some of us are waking up to this, which is why the globalist useful idiots are desperate to deplatform the quote-unquote right-wingers in the Phantom Menace and all those channels, because they really do have a financial impact on these films in some small way. It's, you know, it's like grass fires spread. They actually counter the narrative. Even like all these, like, I don't know, like people look at these channels and like, if you look at these channels and realize like they're like, no, the YouTube Phantom Menace channels are not. They might be moderate, some of them might be slightly right of center, but I don't think there's any one of those guys who is publicly far right. And like, if you're on the left and you look at these channels, like, just because someone disagrees with a movie doesn't automatically de facto make them far right. Like, you carry up these bizarre straw man arguments where it all it does is undercut your argument, where it's like you call everyone far right because they didn't like a movie that's not the movie they fell in love with. Anyway, 2015, Disney Star Wars. It still made money, even if it was kind of a left versus right thing. People had faith in Disney Star Wars. In 2015, they had faith. They got fooled. Everyone got fooled. Not me. I looked at that and I was like, something does not look right about this, so I wasn't too excited for it. Nobody is getting fooled for Rings of Power. People are... That naivety of 2015 is long, long gone. We know how biased the media is. The Trump years showed us how insane... The media would openly lie to you. CNN, MSNBC, like, people know. We know now. We know what Hollywood's all about. Rings of Power, the previews and the images that came out, it looks freaking horrible. It looks woke. So some SGWs are defending it on Twitter. The thing is, we know nobody's going to watch it. Here's how it works. You have to subscribe to Amazon to watch it, whatever, $15 a month or something, or you have to refrain from canceling because they enjoyed Rings of Power so much, or otherwise it has to help grow the general Amazon brand in some way. There's no way it's going to do that. It's going to lose $500 million. And who is going to watch Rings of Power? It's transformative, it's not curative, which means it's not Lord of the Rings, it's woke Afro-Hobbits. Nerds don't want Afro-Hobbits. They want the original. Men are kind of more on the spectrum than women in this regard. And why I bring that up is because we are not as easily fooled. And the further on the spectrum you are, it becomes impossible to fool you with propaganda. We want the real thing. So all this, like, kind of feels this feminine energy with globalist talking points, because women kind of get, I think they're more easily brainwashed with this kind of stuff because they're, I don't know, maybe want to please, or they want to stay in the center of the herd or something. Sorry to the two women who might hear this. All this globalist talking points hit a brick wall with us because we can't accept Afro-Hobbits because it's not Lord of the Rings, and we just stick to that. That's like a firm, concrete post that you can't... You're just... This globalist nonsense is just washing over it because we just go, oh yes, but you're telling us something that's not in accord with reality. Oh, but this is diversity, inclusion, and equity and representation. It's very important. It's important to you. It's not important to me. This isn't Lord of the Rings. And it ends there because you're telling us a lie, and you can keep repeating the lie, and you can have 1,000 people on social media dogpile us and ad hominem and deflect. But we simply, I mean, like in an artistic sense, we go, oh, you're ad hominem and deflecting. You're not addressing the core argument. What you're saying is not probative and relevant to rebut the central argument. These are like logical fallacies 101. Twitter is a bunch of children, or children in adult bodies. It's like we know it can be 1 million people who are against us, but we know, like, when men know they're right, they know they're right. And like, you're not going to pressure us into line. You might pressure us into line to you if we have to maintain a position somewhere, but like, you're not going to get us to go watch a movie. It's just Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Could it be great? I guess it's possible. I mean, I'm not dogmatic. I'm not going to say it's going to be horrible just because it looks horrible. It could be great. It could be great. The previews look bad, so that means like character development you can't really show in previews. So yes, when it comes out, the character development might be fantastic. I mean, the odds of that happening are pretty slim, but then it has to grow by word of mouth. And like, woke Hollywood is already burned through all its goodwill. Amazon doesn't have any goodwill because Amazon itself, Jeff Bezos, Washington Post, but all Hollywood, HBO, Disney, Netflix, all those big companies, they don't have any goodwill because we know they're all, basically grooming kids and just really, really skeezy people. So there's no, you can't just say if you're Amazon, oh, trust us, it'll be good. Like you could have said in 2015, trust us, Star Wars will be good. And people go, oh, sure, for sure, I'll go 2015, I'll sit in the theater and watch Star Wars. And they did, and they paid for it. And then they're like, after that, oh, I might as well just complete the trilogy, and I might as well go see it in the theaters just to finish it up. And then after this, I'm kind of done. And yeah, they were disappointed, but they for the 3 films, they probably paid $40 or $50 for 3 movies back then. And just to finish it up, so Star Wars got its money. They trusted Star Wars. That's all gone now. And what happened when Solo came out? I think its domestic was like $200 million, and the movie cost $300 million to make, which means to break even, it would have had to make about $600 million, and there's not a chance of that happening. The thing is, with Rings of Power, we know we're starting off with a lie. Like they keep pushing these globalist talking points, but nobody's on board with it. So in 2015, people got fooled by Disney. Now we know the machinations of the globalists. Amazon is not fooling anyone with this Bolshevik nonsense with diverse hobbits. This was a show for nerds. Nobody needed to complete Lord of the Rings because Peter Jackson's films 15, 20 years ago were so good, they were complete in and of themselves. Who wants a detailed Lord of the Rings? I think Silmarillion is where it's loosely based on, just thousands of years before this story was told. The nerds want a detailed story, but you destroyed everything that made the details accurate, so the nerds don't want it. Nobody but SJWs want this kind of diversity because most people by now know it's cancer. We know it's bad storytelling. It results in not organic stories, purse puppies, and Mary Sues. You took a strong story that had a name recognition and people liked, then you changed you took out it was a European story, and then you told the story by erasing the Europeans that the story was based on. It feels like this is just part of a humiliation ritual to degrade and dehumanize the cattle who you're hoping will pay for Amazon streaming. The thing is, it's like you guys try to make stuff more and more ridiculous by swapping out characters for like a Stonehenge. And then you look at the Stonehenge. Is it tales told in Stonehenge? You look at the actors like, why? Those aren't English. Those are Africans telling the tale of Stonehenge. No. This is reimagining, but it's not. Res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself. This isn't the thing that we wanted to see. This is a faux thing. Oh no. You're just a fashionable one. If you reject it, that's not relevant to the argument. You're just deflecting because you made something that's propaganda and nobody wants to see it. Anyway, I hope people wake up and seek redress of grievance through constitutionally protected means. So why would you ghost Peter Jackson? Because he would have read the script and he would have walked away. And then you would have had to explain that it was such woke anti-white cancer that Peter Jackson didn't want to get involved with it. So the kids on Twitter are trying to defend Rings of Power by saying The Hobbit was bad. And a lot of these people had never even seen, they don't know the story of The Hobbit with New Line Cinema and Del Toro. And a lot of these kids on Twitter, you forget how young people are if you're, over 40. They'd never seen Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings movie, which seems to me indefeasible to think, how are you watching movies? And that was the only great trilogy that came out in the past 20 years. How did you not see? That would be like not seeing the original Star Wars trilogy. It's just, I cannot fathom someone who enjoys movies but doesn't see, or like the original Ghostbusters, classics like that, at least, as far as modern movies can be a classic. So they're trying to defend Rings of Power by attacking The Hobbit. The thing is, Jackson came on board after Del Toro left because allegedly he was being micromanaged by New Line Cinema. Jackson, he did it as a favor, so we're trying to get the story from the back channels, but he should have avoided it and just, let someone else, it was someone else's mess. He tried to fix it. It was an impossible thing to do. And it was a mess. It sucked because it deviated from the books, which is exactly what Rings of Power is doing. Thus, it will also suck. All you have to do is, if you follow the books, the original Lord of the Rings was a very good movie because it followed the books. Hobbit deviated from the books, and it wasn't as enjoyable. Rings of Power has nothing to do with the books whatsoever. And the funny thing is, in their interviews, they always go, "Oh, when in doubt, we go back to Tolkien and we say, what would he have done?" And you're like, "What's the color of the sky in your world? None of the things you're saying are accurate." I mean, you're lying to us. We all know you're lying to us. I can't imagine you lying to each other. It's like, so Tolkien put AFROHOBBITS in Lord of the Rings. He put this chick doing all this stuff because it felt like it was kind of a male-oriented adventure because it was loosely, it was influenced by World War One and European fantasy, and men and women had certain roles. So it doesn't really feel like you're going back to, oh yeah, we're lying. Yeah, we're lying to you. Bend over. We're just going to F you in the A. Yeah, that's what it feels like you're doing. But, I mean, you're expecting us to pay $15 a month for Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime's not free. People have all these streaming services, and they all cost, I don't know, $15 a month. I don't have any of them. There's only so many you can afford. And then even if you can afford them, you look and you're like, yeah, I'm paying $50 a month in streaming, and I haven't watched anything in the past month because it's all dog feathers. Why would I continue to just burn money? Oh, I'm going to cancel my subscription and go read a effing book. Tolkien wrote great stories. He wrote simple stories told well, which is that is an adage to stick by. The people at Amazon cannot create great stories because they're not great people. If they could, they would. The writers and directors can't create because they're globalist parasites. The Shadow Realm can only destroy and corrupt. So the hubris of these vermin thinking that they're going to improve Lord of the Rings, how they're deviating from the story and reimagine it with Marxist cancer, that we're very well aware of Bolshevism, Marxism, and propaganda. Even if we don't use that lexicon, we still say, oh, it's woke. And woke means worlds to us. And then on Twitter, these SJWs get so triggered, they go, define wokeness. Why? I don't have to define it. It means, wokeness to me means I'm not going to watch this. Well, if you can't even, it feels like the SJW, like it's kind of an appeal to authority to ask you to define something. It's like, I know what it feels to me. Woke, I'll define it anti-white. Is it anti-white? Is it misandrist? Does it degrade or humiliate people based on their ethnicity? Oh, that's woke. And I'm not gonna. Why would I pay for that? Listen, I would do the same if you did it. If you did it to Chinese people. If Chinese people were always the antagonists in every movie, I'd be like, oh, this is. Not because I love or hate Chinese people, and I don't hate them, but because it's like the story is told when I know the antagonist is every time is going to be of Chinese descent. There's no willing suspension of disbelief when you see, oh, hey, look, the blonde guy is going to be the good guy in every story, and the Chinese guy is going to be the antagonist in every story. Well, you can just pick up the book and put it down again. You don't need to open it because the story is told. Welcome to modern comics and welcome to modern movies. You notice, oh, hey, look, there's a POC on the cover of some DVD, if they sell DVDs anymore, and there's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. Guess who's going to be incompetent? Oh, yeah, it's going to be the blonde guy because the past 100 movies in the past 20 years, have you seen Star Trek Discovery CBS, the first episode? It was literally that. Some European guy and an African girl. Guess who's incompetent? It's like, that doesn't make sense. They built Europe. How are they so incompetent if they managed to? Have you seen Europe in the past 1,000 years? They accomplished a whole hell of a lot. And I'm not saying anything other than that. I'm just saying, like, there's no verisimilitude when you look at these castles and stuff that these European dudes built. And yeah, it was men. It was these blonde-haired, blue-eyed men who were doing all this amazing stuff. Like, the cradle of civilization is France, Germany, and the UK. Scotland, Ireland, Wales, whatever. It's like everything invented was from that 90% of the things invented in the 20th century were from that region. Oh, no, yeah, but in movies and cartoons and comic books and in commercials, they're the most incompetent, inept, and maliciously evil people, but also stupid and inefficient. Yeah, they're efficient and geniuses, but they're also inefficient and incompetent. Okay, like, the racism aside, from a storytelling point of view, that doesn't make sense when you're always making this Aryan stereotype: inefficient, efficient, stupid, malicious, but cunning, devious, and super intelligent. You're going to have to pick your battles. It's like they're everything to everybody because they're just an antagonist. Whenever you need an antagonist, it's like they make the same story. I know I grind that axe all the time, but it's like I grind the axe all the time because you see it in every... What do you think you're going to see in Rings of Power? Yeah, you can go sail the high seas and watch it. We'll do a little watch party together on Odyssey or Telegram or something like that. Or if we have to do it on Amazon, No, I guess we can't. I mean, if you have a free subscription, like you can borrow subscriptions from people, kind of thing. We do a watch party for Rings of Power. It's like, guess who the bad guys are going to be? Guess who's incompetent? It's like, weren't the elves? I think weren't they like all blonde and that kind of thing? It's like, yeah. Guess who's going to show them up? Remember in Wakanda? Oh, I got another white boy I've got to patch up. Wait, Wakanda's in Africa? It's like 100% black ethno state. Why are there European guys who are getting injured in Wakanda that you have to patch them up? Oh, that line doesn't make any sense. It's just a straw man. Yeah, why'd you put it in the movie? I mean, it's a completely African ethno state. Why would you have an emergency room? So presumably 100% of the clientele are of African from Wakandan origin. Why would you have Europeans that you are constantly patching up? That doesn't make any sense. Like a child could break that down to you. Like, I wasn't even paying close attention to that movie. And I looked at it. That doesn't make... Oh, hey, the first 5 minutes of the movie. They have... I'm half hour into this. Someone predicted before Black Panther came out, they goes, the first 5 minutes of the movie... The movie's... They don't say the first. They go, the first movie's going to have, like... it's going to have certain cliches. And then the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie opens up with those exact cliches. You're like, oh, this really is formulaic. Yeah, this is a Black identity movie. Wait, Stan Lee and Kirby? Those guys, they weren't... Yeah, they didn't... I mean, like, maybe write something fresh. Like I always say, listen, you just set something in... Like, the Shaka Zulu story is just out there dying to be told. The Henry Rider Haggard stuff, if anyone treated Africans and Europeans fairly, it was Henry Rider Haggard. There were heroes and villains among both groups of people. The Dutch, the English, the occasional other Europeans running around, and then the various tribes of Central Africa where he set this tale. And then he wrote some South American stories, too. He treated both sides very fairly. That's an impossible task for Hollywood. Anyway, I've probably gone long enough. I mean, really, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Subscribestar if you have $2 a month to donate to the cause so I can upgrade this setup from a cell phone that randomly shuts itself off and my Kindle. And I will see you guys all on Odyssey, Bit Chute, Telegram, Gab, and Gab TV, which has a video platform.